Most of you are already familiar with creating a Google form. However, I'm going to take a moment and recap some of the things that you should know before you create a form for a survey. For a survey, your form should mostly be asking closed-ended questions rather than open-ended. A closed-ended question is where you're asking the user to select from a predefined set of options. True or false, or multiple choice questions are examples of closed-ended questions. Fill in the blanks or any question where you ask the user to type a response is an example of an open-ended question. We'll start by reviewing the common question types that we get in Google. I'm going to go ahead and start a new Google form. I'll give it a name. And you can see by default, it's already added one question to my form. The question type that it chooses by default is a multiple choice question. And I'll go ahead and create a full question here. Pretty random assortment of colors. And if I go ahead and look at the preview of that in the live view, this is what the user would see. You can see that I can go ahead and I can select any color, but I can only select one from each of those. I'll go back to the original form where I'm authoring the form, and I'll go ahead and use the duplicate option. So I've duplicated the question. It's exactly the same as it was before, but this time I'm just going to change the question type to be checkboxes. And then I'm going to go back to the view, preview, and you can see now that I've got checkboxes rather than radio buttons that we had up here, and I can select as many or as few as I want in that question type. So depending on what you're asking, if you only want one answer from the user, you choose the multiple choice question, which is the radio button. If you want them to be able to select more than one option, then you use the checkboxes so they can select more than one. The final selection type, which is kind of similar and related here, I'm going to duplicate this question again, and this time rather than checkboxes, I'm going to select drop-down. So the drop-down is really kind of the same as the multiple choice type of question in that it only allows them to choose one option. If I go back and refresh again, this time you can see rather than having the long list, it's all rolled up into a simple list here, so I can then select one option from the list that way. The difference between a drop-down list and the multiple choice is really in how the user is going to interact with it, how it appears on screen. If you have a really long list, this is okay for multiple choice where you're using radio buttons, but if you had a really long list, it would get very awkward on screen. So then having the list box makes more sense. So having the drop-down list, and if you want, the user can actually go in and type the letters. So I can type blue and it'll go to blue. So if you have a really long list, like a country list where there's hundreds of entries, it's very easy for a user to get to what they want. Now let's look at a couple more question types. Again, I click New, and this time I'm going to change the type to linear scale. So this is the type of question where asking a question how much they like something or how strong a feeling they have related to something. So something like, so how much did you like the movie that you watched last night? And then it's defaults to a scale from 1 to 5, and you get to tell it what 1 means and what 5 means. So 1 means it was terrible, 5 means best movie ever. Now if we go and look at that, let's see what it looks like. You can see how it's presented here now. So again, it's a radio button, so it's very much like the multiple choice question, but it's presented in a way that helps users understand the type of question you're asking. Gives them the extremes of it was terrible and best movie ever, and they can choose the setting that they think is appropriate. If you need users to provide you with open-ended input, that's where you would use short answer and paragraph, depending on how much information you need to get from them. Short answer is just what it sounds like. If you're just getting a few words from them or a sentence, very short sentence, then short answer makes sense. If you need a lot of information from them where they're going to write a big paragraph, then you choose the paragraph option. The other two options that are available here are multiple choice grid and checkbox grid. I'm not going to go into those at the moment. Essentially, they're very similar to the multiple choice question and the checkbox questions, but they're presented in a grid format. So depending on the type of question you're trying to ask, they might be appropriate, but they're a little more advanced and a little more complicated to work with. You may want to explore those on your own, but I'm not going to cover them here. There's one more question type that I forgot to talk about, and that's the true-false question. It's a pretty common type of question that we ask. It's really just a variation of a multiple choice question, but it only has two choices, obviously true and false. So if we go ahead and we click add a question to add a new question, and I start by saying true or false, and then I ask it a true or false type question and say, cats are better than dogs. So that's a statement, cats are better than dogs. And you can see Google is smart enough to recognize that it's a true or false question. And it gives me the two options here for true and false. And I can go ahead and click add all. And it automatically adds the true or false options into my list. So it's just a really little quick shortcut for doing true or false questions. Now I'm going to go and create another form. And this time I'm going to show you how to do branching. If you want to ask questions that are different based on a user's response to a previous question, this is how you do it. So the first thing we're going to do is going to ask the user a question. So we've got a simple question. What is your hair color? Pink or purple? It's a strange audience that we're targeting here. The next thing we're going to do is create a couple of sections. So I'm going to go ahead and create two sections right off the bat. And I'm going to name this section the pink hair section. And this is the purple hair section. And in each of those sections, I'm going to put in a question. So in the pink hair section, I'm going to ask, why did you choose pink hair? And the question is going to be multiple choice. And the responses are, I love pink. My mom loves pink. And in the purple hair section, we're going to ask some different questions. So there we go. Now we've got three sections in our document. We've got the introductory question. Then we have a section that's specific for people with pink hair and a section that's specific to people who have purple hair. Now we want to get them to navigate. If they choose pink here, we want to get them to the pink part of the form. If they choose purple, naturally we want to get them to jump to the purple part of the form. So let's go ahead and see how we do that. Back in the original question here, I'm going to click on that. And this time we click on the three dots in the bottom right hand corner where it says more options. And we say we're going to use this question as a go to section based on answer. So here now it pops up a new drop down list that says continue to the next section. But I'm going to change that to say go to the pink hair section. And on the purple line, I'm going to change that one obviously to go to the purple hair section. Now we'll go ahead and let's take a look and preview that. We're presented with the first question, which is what is your hair color? If I select pink and click next, it says why did you choose pink hair? If we go back and I choose purple instead, click next, and this time it says how long have you had purple hair? So this is allowing you to branch your form and ask different questions depending on choices you make. You can make a much more complicated form with many branches, or you might just have two branches as I've done here. That covers the essentials that you need to know for creating forms and for doing branching in Google Form. Good luck with your survey.